Yeah,
Um,
hello. Can you introduce yourself?
yeah, I'm I guess username administrator. Um, Not exactly part of any group or anything. I am working on a project with some guys called Layer 72, but we're still thinking about where we're going to go with that. Generally, I'm a student. Um, Generally not into much right now, but yeah.
What are your pronouns?
I suppose he, him.
All right, all right. Well, I say let's get straight into it.
All right.
You're a fan of Russia?
Um, I'm a fan of Russia more so than the current Western Europeans and America. I wouldn't say I'm pro-Russian, only pro-Russian insofar as they're a better alternative.
Wait, why do you think Russia's a better alternative?
Well, I suppose this would necessitate some context, but I'll try to do it with the least amount. Um, I believe in kind of perennial traditionalism. Like I have my own religious tenets, but I see that as kind of the foundation of civilization, of human progress. And the West has pretty much, I'll just use the term the Atlantean West, which can get difficult for some people to take seriously, obviously because of the myths, but it's just used to describe the kind of Pan-American uh, or Anglosphere, generally speaking, empire, kind of liberal globalism, whatever you'd associate with that. I think they've kind of lost the plot. They've departed from kind of what are proper traditional values, and by traditional values, I don't mean tradition for the sake of preserving tradition, like what we did 10 years ago is what we should continue, or something like that, or what our ancestors is. There are kind of proper epistemic and ontological justifications for certain beliefs, and I think that while Russia is kind of it's a question. It's questionable morally. They do a lot of suspect stuff. I think most of that could be chalked up to the fact that they're poor and corrupt, and I think they they generally have better um, traditional aims. But that would be my explanation.
Yeah, okay, like I can get why you would say that Russia is more in line with your values, but that's not really the issue right here, right? But we currently have a conflict in Russia-Ukraine where Russia just barged into Ukraine and just tried to take over. Like you must agree that like if you are a democratic state that you would have some right to autonomy.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with democracy, and also I think it matters more what a person's like axiomatic beliefs are, what their underlying semi-unconscious values are, rather than a kind of, I don't know, legalism of Westphalian states or something like that. I think war is always justified or unjustified based on the values a person has, and not whether like war as a whole is a good thing.
Still though, like Russia isn't instilling like any good values right now into Ukraine. Like currently they're just bombing. Like if you wanna go to like a traditional, I don't know, you're probably Christian as well, I assume.
I'm not Christian.
You're not Christian, but you do wanna go back to like tradition. Okay. Um, well, I mean, I don't see why you would like bomb civilians. Like they have committed more war crimes over the past 3 months than Ukraine has, and just because of their values. Now, I disagree strongly with this. I don't think you can justify war crimes.
Well, war crimes, you bring that up. Like obviously, raw violence for the sake of violence is a moral bad.
Yeah, and they're
But
continuously engaged in this.
let me finish. I don't think there are really any crimes, quote unquote, in war. It's war is war. So you get we do what you have to do to get it done. I don't think Russia has perpetrated more or less crimes in Ukraine. I think both are doing what they need to win. Um, and again, it's like, yeah, of course they can't they can't build schools or churches or something or instill traditional values because they're in a war. But yeah, those you got to think about practical circumstances.
I really don't get it. Like, first of all, Russia is very authoritarian. People are being shut down. Like, I don't know, if are you in favor of free speech? Because
Uh,
Russia is
Not
continuously
really, no.
hammering down on it.
I don't believe in free speech. I don't. There's not free speech in the West or in Russia or anywhere else on the earth. Um, I'm not for or against authoritarianism either. I think authoritarianism, liberty, these are just tools to reach larger ends. They're not kind of like aims in themselves. Like if authoritarianism is what is needed to reach a certain goal, then go for it. If liberty is needed, then go for it. I don't think there's any problem with these kind of labels.
Well, then your issue isn't just per se with Russia or Ukraine. You just have a very fundamental difference in belief systems. So like,
Yeah,
um, so like, what's your axiomatic value? Like, do you value freedom? Like, what's your goal? What's your end game?
my end game. That's a good question. I'll have to explain it in allegory because obviously, I'm still trying to develop it, understand it myself. But if I had to give kind of certain prescriptive things, um, I would say, are you familiar with the? I'm just gonna throw out a bunch of names if you're familiar with any of these guys: Rene Guénon, Julius Evola, Oswald Spengler.
Yeah,
Um,
Julius Evola, like the super Nazi.
I mean, he got thrown out of the SS Academy for not teaching enough about racial biology, but I mean, he wasn't really. He called himself a super fascist to piss off the people at his post-war trial, but
Yeah, most of
he
his
was never.
ideology very, very much aligns with the Nazis, though.
I mean, half and half. I'm not saying I like or dislike Nazis or like or dislike Julius Evola as a person. I'm just saying I agree with the ideas. But yeah, so those three characters, have influenced my beliefs a lot. I would say most of my beliefs are a cross between Vedic Hinduism and kind of uh, the Greek model. There's no proper word for it. Um, I would say I would break it down by kind of um, um, the caste system. So obviously the most important thing in the world is spirituality, bar none. I think, um, and it'll take a long time to go into a spiritual discussion like metaphysics and such. I'll just say spirituality as a blank, as
Hmm.
a fill-in word. But Hinduism and some part of the Greek mythos is my belief system there. Then the second one would be kind of your craft. I mean, not your craft, but kind of your ethic. Um, and I'd say it'd probably be somewhere around accelerationism or fourth position for now. Um, then the craft, I'd say um, we could skip that, and then the blood and soil. And I'm not a hardcore like biological determinist or anything. I think that kind of thinking is very autistic, and it's wrong most of the time. It's too reductionist. But I'd say like obviously my people first,
But
and then
but I still haven't heard like what you want to accomplish. What are your goals for humanity?
I don't have any goals for humanity. I only have goals for my own people. So I say,
Wait. So like, what do you mean your own people?
yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure who's going to be listening to this, so I'm not going to give any kind of identifying information off about myself. I'll just speak in broad general terms. Obviously, you can understand with the kind of climate now, but I am mostly kind of um, the Eastern Indo-European branch, so um, Indo-Persia up to um, the Caucasus and the Slavs. So my racial composition is somewhere in there, and yeah. So I think those types of people are the people that I value the most. So maybe Slavs, Pashtuns, Nuristani, um, Sindhi, those types of people.
Okay, so first of all, I would already say that's pretty openly racist. You know, why
I
would you
mean,
value like one group above the other? Second, like, what's your goal for those people?
so that's a very long discussion. We could go into that. But um, is it openly racist? I mean, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Um, but again, so I think their unique cultural expression and their ability to propagate kind of the better works of man is valuable. And also, I think the goal would be I think the number one conflict of the next 100 years will be demographics. Which groups can maintain like stable birth rates and maintain a demographic control of their own lands, and which groups are more fertile and more expansionist. So I think for my own aims, it would be making sure that this kind of uh, Indo-European Eastern diaspora maintain stable birth rates and can hold on to their own lands. I think in these kind of trying times, you could look back at history, whether it's the Bronze Age collapse or Germans sacking Rome. It's important that kind of you can stave off the barbarians or become a barbarian yourself to preserve your own bloodline. Like appeals to greater civilization or appeals to uh, I don't know, fascism or something. It's just a
Yeah,
waste
like,
of time.
wait, this is pretty ethno-state kind of
No, no,
mentality.
yeah, it is. Well, it
Yeah,
is,
but
but it's
but
it's.
that's wrong.
But let me
Like, why
explain. Let
would
me
you value one? First of all, why would you value one race above the other?
wait,
And
wait, let me explain
second,
first. Let
your
me explain
only
because there's
goal.
a nuance to it.
Wait, but
There's a nuance
secondly,
to it.
your only
Oh yeah, let
goal.
me just complete it. Let me just complete it. Let me just complete it. So I'm not for third position. I'm for fourth position proper. So I don't believe in nationalism at all. I don't believe in. I'm not like anti-state or something. I'm not an anarchist. I think those labels are largely useless. But I think a kind of supremacy or expansionism is not practical or reasonable at this time. It's just
No, but that's
important.
what you're advocating for. You're
No,
basically
it's
saying, yeah, we
okay.
need to I need to preserve my own race or ethnicity.
Okay, let's say the Pashtuns in Afghanistan, or let's say the Pashtuns in Pakistan. That's a better example. They're currently the current government now and in the past has never been a big fan of them. I mean, there's reasons for that, but I think they will try to act on that and push the Pashtuns back into Afghanistan. I think it's important for Pashtuns to either break off from them or just kind of maintain their own hold on their own or on their own lands, their own tribal systems, stuff like that. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
it's
recognize
kind
that
of
there
like
may be
right to
groups who
self-determination.
may be a minority in a country and therefore get the shit end of the stick in that country. I don't think that uh, uh I think that maybe like secession from the country may be what do you call it, a temporary solution, but I don't think this should just be like worldwide policies, you know, that people just stick to their own country. No, that's absurd. Like in
Why
the
is it
end,
absurd?
sorry?
Why is it absurd? Well, we have different goals, we have different ideals,
Yeah,
so maybe
because you
agree
value
on.
one race above the other. Humans are all the same. Like, that's just a fact.
Uh,
There is
I,
no reason to have a racial
that's not
divide.
true. That's not true.
Yes, there is. Like,
We know that's not true.
yeah, we're all
Humans,
the same. Like, what the hell are you talking about?
no, no. I mean, there's environmental factors, social factors, economic factors. That's obviously true.
Yeah, but we can
But
change social and economic values,
yeah,
and there
yeah,
is
yeah.
no
But let me finish. Let me
genetic
finish.
difference between the races
I was gonna
in
say
terms
there
of
are genetic racial differences
like
between
what?
different groups of people. They're all are spiritual. Okay, should we get into race science right now? Is
Yeah,
that's because that's a
apparently.
whole different discussion. But how long did you do that? Because that could go on for like 2-3 hours.
Well, I can just say right now, there is no evidence supporting that the difference between the races are that there even are difference between the races. If you talk about intellect, if you talk about athleticism, they're just basic human beings. There's no difference except for the color of the skin.
Okay, I agree to disagree. But yeah, I mean, we can go into that and have like a long digression, but it's
And
just
even
if you
then,
want
by
to
the
go
way,
into them.
even if that would be the case, I would still not advocate for the positions you hold.
Okay, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, we disagree on that aspect of things.
Yeah, so wait, what? Okay, so let's say you're true, right? Let's say there are differences between the races, okay, and they're
Okay.
substantial. Like, why then would you still want to divide them?
Because um, I don't. Well, I want to do a mini, uh, tiny like. This isn't my real point. But I think um,
No, but that's what you're arguing for.
wait. Let me finish. Let me finish. So I don't really believe in kind of a supremacy of one group as a universal because like if I go to say I don't know a feminist or something, I'm not going to be like, oh, you don't actually believe those values because you're low IQ or something, and that's why you actually like align with my moral order. You just don't realize it. No, I'm willing to give everybody their own kind of how do you say it? I'm willing to believe that they actually believe in their own thing and that it's a valid position. I just disagree in the position, so it's more for me like I don't exactly I can't explain why like my group first to an outsider that's not part of my group because you can never see the values in my group that I see in it. Um, so yeah, I can go on about the history of I don't know like the Rus or Persia or something, but it's like you're not that's not going to appeal to you because you're not part of that.
No,
And
then
and
you would
and
have to make the argument why everybody should hold the position you hold. Why should
I'm
everybody
not
basically be
again.
like ethnostaters?
I don't want everybody. I don't care. Well, they can if they want. It doesn't
No,
matter to me.
because like no, because if you are advocating this for your ethnicity, then you must
Yeah.
also agree that other people must do this for their same ethnicity as well, because you think it's a moral good. So you have to
Well,
convince me why should I be like an ethno-nationalist?
no, you're saying that just because I believe something, I have to kind of put that on everybody else. I have to universalize it, which I don't think is true. Just because I believe something doesn't mean some like Korean or Aboriginal or something needs to hold the same belief.
Now, if you believe that this is a good thing to have an ethno-state specifically for your ethnicity, then you would
Yeah,
have to also say that, hey, this ethnicity, if they want to be a good ethnicity, they have to also do this.
that's up to them. I'm not going to argue for it. I mean, why? Why do I have to justify? I mean, I'm not saying I would reject that. Like if some, I don't know, say Amazonian people want to have self-determination and like have a resurgence of the Incan Empire or something, like sure, go for it. It's not my business. Like I'm not going to say they can't do that. I'm
But
just not
if
going to
they
say
would
that they
hold the
should.
same beliefs as you have, they would also advocate for like higher birth rates of their people,
Yeah, they
and
would.
they would also have like we need to minimalize the amount of people that are in Persia, the amount of people that are everywhere. Like we need to be the superior race. That's what they
Yeah.
would believe.
Well,
That would lead
again,
to the denigration of you as well.
I think that's a conflation of self-determination and um, gosh, what was I thinking? Oh, self-determination and supremacy. Like India, the north of India, which is like, have they ever expanded beyond their borders? Not once have the Hindus expanded beyond their borders. Persia, have they ever expanded past non-Persian people? Arguably, yes, but not really. The Rus have, this is a better example. Have Russians ever expanded beyond a Eurasian mindset? I don't think they care. Like China has never expanded beyond their borders. They've never been expansion. They're fine. They're fine being Han Chinese and living that life or whatever. Of course, but it's dog eat dog world. Yeah,
Wait. This is not true. Like China has currently territory that they want to conquer in India. It's a disputed territory.
that's
By the way,
that's not,
also in Korean wars, like uh, um, China is currently using North Korea as a vassal state. Like they do have an interest in expanding their borders. They don't just do it in the way that Russia is doing it to Ukraine.
well, we should look at both examples there. So why is China in that area? It's because of freshwater reserves. And has that area been historically Indian or Chinese? Well, not really either. So it's been both. Tibet is not really properly Hindu or Buddhist. So I mean, I'm not a Chinese person, and yeah, I would say it's in my own personal interest. I would like them to get out of there, but is it like a unjustified moral action that they're doing that? I mean,
Yes.
not really, in my opinion. And with North Korea, so China has always been very friendly with the Koreans historically, and it's only been these past 100 or so years that that relationship has soured largely. From the meddling of the United States and Japan. I think a united Korea and China would just be returning to the norm. It wouldn't be anything deviating from what has been the standard for China.
So, wait, I don't care about the standard for China. Like, I still don't get like you don't believe morals are universal. Like you
Not
probably don't
among
care.
all people. Well, it's my universals are universal to my own people, but they're not universal to everybody.
So murder, like, so killing gay people in one society can be good, but killing gay people in another society can be bad.
Uh, that's sure, yeah.
Because you're basically arguing for cultural relativism. So, like,
Yes,
if people
and
would like
yeah, I
commit
would
a white
stand by
genocide
that.
or something, then you would be fine with it, but in other cultures it would be wrong to do like a Chinese genocide or something.
Well, I think it's more like
Because
the
that's what you're
strong eat the
saying
weak.
on an ethical level. You know that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the strong eat the weak. So like, it matters less about morality, and it matters more if you have the power to push forward your own interests. Like,
Okay, so let's say then on a more individual level, if I were able to kill you, that would be justified because I'm stronger than you.
I mean, it wouldn't be justified or unjustified.
But you just
It
said
just
might
happens.
makes right. That's basically what you're saying.
I'm saying might makes right insofar as like you can justify your own moral frame. I'm not saying it's a universal right or something like the strongest people are the almost automatically the most like virtuous or something. I'm just saying like people who have the power can put forward their own frame of morality, and and that's all that matters. If you have the ability to put forward your own frame of morality, not the virtues of your own moral frame, if that
So
makes sense.
again, it's more about the power to enforce your morals than about the actual morals itself.
Well, it matters about the morals for your own group. Like they have to be, but
Why for your
when you're
own group
dealing.
specifically? That's so ridiculous.
Well, you have to have a kith and kin. You have to have a tribe, a family, things like
Yeah, how
this.
about 7 billion people? Just that. That's simple.
7 billion people that don't look like me, think like me, act like me, have the same history, religion as me. So, you know,
Yeah, who cares? Like, I can
well,
probably
I
find
care.
like if like there's a black guy who has the same beliefs as I have, I don't give a shit. Like they have the same beliefs as I have. Great.
Okay, I
If
mean,
there's
good for
like a
you.
white dude in my country from my neighborhood who has like your beliefs, that's awful. That like I would not be one of friends with them. Like it really doesn't matter along racial lines or how people look. It's more about the ideas itself. So I
I mean,
don't
okay,
really get why you
that's
have like
I mean,
shared
that's your
history and
belief.
shit.
I have a different belief in that. If you want to do a separate discussion on this kind of stuff, like, but again, it would just reduce to our axiomatic values. Like, I have a preference for kith and kin. You have a preference for whatever you have a preference in. So it's just a difference of opinion and belief.
Yeah, I get that. I don't think you can justify it though.
I mean, okay, we could have a separate
Like yeah, if
discussion.
like honestly, we can go like onto Russia, Ukraine. If you believe that yeah, Russia's basically doing its right for its own people, like I can't continue past that.
Yeah, yeah, let's
Like
go to
it's this
that.
is not a situation about misinformation or thinking about U.S. hegemony, but this is just like yeah, I believe Russia is doing well because it's trying to protect its Russian people, quote unquote.
I mean, I don't think it's trying to protect. I think it's it's a mix. Like, of course, there's a security threat, and that's why they invaded. That's the
Wait,
pretense.
wait, there's no security threat to Russia.
Well, if Ukraine joins NATO and they have, nothing against Jews personally, but they have a Jewish president and they're highly connected with the Israelis, so they'll push forward a kind of Anglosphere liberal head like the policy,
Yeah,
and
they
then they'll
like
join the EU,
democracy and they like progressive ideas.
quote
Yeah.
unquote democracy. But
It's a better democracy than Russia.
it's not ruled by the demos. If you're going with the kind of linguistic etymology of the word, it's not democracy at all. I'd say the people of China are more democratic than the people of the West.
Holy shit, why is, wait, 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 that's not true at all. People in China are unable to vote in a system like Ukrainian people are able to vote. You know, they
And
voted
there's
him in.
and not even from a right-wing perspective, from a progressive perspective, there's a litany of studies that show that voting has literally zero correlation with with a change in policy. It's all down to financial backers, special interest groups, these kind of things. It's voting has no relevance in the West either. It
Wait,
really doesn't matter.
so you think it is no difference if Joe Biden was president or like Donald Trump?
Short term, there's a difference. Long term, I don't think so. And in larger things like foreign policy or economic policy or something like that.
Yeah, so voting
Voting makes a
matters. Like
difference.
if, even if you're a small country like Ukraine, like at least a relative small country like Ukraine, then yeah, voting matters.
Well, again, that's a good example because Ukraine voted in. I don't even remember the names. I'm not Slavic, so I can't even pronounce them. But the guy that they voted in 2013 or 2014, whenever, he got ousted by a coup that was supported by Western intelligence agencies, and then they got this Zelensky
No, no,
character.
wait, no, 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 that's not true. No,
Okay.
there was just a protest against him, or well, not a protest. There was
Uh,
what do you call an
Protests are
uprising
passive
against him,
proof.
but that was because he was like very pro-Russia and very what do you call it, very nationalistic towards Russia. Was basically like a simp for Putin. Okay, like it's basically like the Belarus situation where Putin has put in some
Yeah, yeah,
people in
Lukashenko
place
style
to
stuff.
get control over the countries.
I don't think people in Ukraine at that time were very anti-Russian or pro-Russian. I think they were more concerned with the fact that he was running the economy poorly, and they were not getting enough money to buy food and stuff. And then the West used that kind of general unhappiness with economic conditions to instigate a coup, overthrow him, and put in Zelensky. I don't think there was a support for like geopolitical reasons. I think most people care about things like, do I get electricity? Do I get water? Do I get food? Do I get a job? They don't care about like geopolitical things.
All right, still though, like now they elected someone who's democratic and who can actually defend their country. You know?
I don't think he's democratic.
But he has
And
been elected. Like you just said that like the pro-Russia guy has been elected. Now this guy has also been elected. Like what's the difference between that election and this election? That this election
the
went fairer?
elections, no, I would not say it's fair because the previous guy was ousted undemocratically, and then this guy was put in. So like, how is
Yeah,
that
by a
different to
democratic process.
numbers?
Like they didn't just place a
An
guy in there.
undemocratic
The people
process.
voted
Western
for him.
intelligence agencies infiltrated the country and dethroned this guy.
Sorry?
Western intelligence agencies took control over institutions in Ukraine and ousted the previous guy, and then instigated this so and so democratic election. But the process to get to that point was incredibly undemocratic. That guy was voted in democratically, the one before Zelensky, and then they
Yeah, and this guy
undemocratically
was
ousted him.
also voted in democratically.
Okay, come on. Like, oh, okay, so Ukraine at this very like within the last few years is suddenly like a paragon of democracy, and they've
No,
suddenly
no, I'm
realized.
not saying that at all. I'm
Then
saying they
then how
overthrew an
are they more democratic?
authoritarian leader and
Oh,
instead had held
and
elections.
Zelensky is not an authoritarian leader. How is
Sorry?
Zelensky any different from this pro-Russian guy before him
First of
in his
all, they
practices?
had a lot more progressive solutions solved. For example, I
Oh no,
think they
his
have
government is ran by
more. I think they have
bandits
more
and Israelis.
lenient
They're
towards
incredibly
abortion and shit.
authoritarian.
I'm
They're
sorry.
incredibly authoritarian. They arrest all their political enemies. Like what they've done with the. I mean, I don't really care, but what they've done with the banning of Russian languages in the East. They lock up anybody who disagrees with them. They're forcefully
No,
drafting people.
Russia does this. Russia does this.
Yeah, yeah, Russia does this. Russia does this, but Ukraine also does it. So I don't think they're any more democratic or undemocratic than Russia.
No, no, they're way more democratic because at least they get to choose the leader. Even if all you're
No,
saying is true,
they chose a
even
leader and
if you're
then he got
saying all
ousted
this
by a
is
coup.
true, then Ukraine is still more democratic than Russia. And I don't
Okay,
grant you that.
let's say let's say Ukraine is 5% more democratic. Sure, I
Yeah,
don't.
that's still
It's not
very
as
much.
it's not true because it's run by banderists and Israelis who persecute any political enemy they see. But let's just grant you that
No, no, no.
Ukraine is
They're no,
this.
no. They're chasing after the Russians because they have actively
Uh,
infiltrated, uh, um, like spreading propaganda about how Russia is great and all, and like this is the reason why.
and
Uh,
Ukraine doesn't do that, and Ukraine doesn't push this false narrative of the Ukrainians being a separate ethnicity and language from the Russians, and
well, they probably
Ukraine
do
has
that.
the
They probably do that. I would be against that, but they
yeah,
do
yeah,
it.
but it's
They do it
I'm just saying
against
like
Russia,
these
which I'm fine with. Like nationalism can
because
connect
you
at
don't
some
like
points.
Russia, because you don't like Russia. It's just subjective then. Like you're just being arbitrarily
No,
supportive
no,
of
I still
Ukraine
think
because you
it's
like.
wrong, but I think like having a national identity can help overcome the war. Like I'm not a nationalist, but when Germans would have invaded us, I would have been the most pro fucking Dutch that was, okay? Like we have our independent country. I need to fight for it, okay?
Yeah.
And I think Ukraine is in the same position. Like they don't have to be authoritarian, they don't have to be nationalistic, but it is effective if you're going against like a global power trying to take over your country.
Is
Like
this
this is
not the
actively
exact
against
same
the
like justification I
self-determination.
gave for Russia though? You're just being selectively nice to some countries. That's the
No,
exact
no, wait. I
justification
can
I
still
gave
criticize
for knighting
Ukraine.
things.
I can still
Yeah,
criticize
yeah,
Ukraine.
yeah. Yeah. I don't say you like what's happening in Ukraine with Azov and all that things, but you're still more anti-Russian than you are criticizing Ukraine.
Yeah, because Russia
And then that's
invades and Ukraine defend has to defend itself.
and why does Russia invade? Because the West was instigating political conflict in Ukraine against Russia. And Ukraine is not even oh, I don't want to get into that situation, but you know.
No,
Okay,
it's
let's
very
grant that
plainly
Ukraine is
Russia just barged into the country and said, "Yeah, this is our land now." That's how it
okay, okay.
went.
Let's say Ukraine is a paragon of democracy and it's a progressive
It's
liberal
not.
utopia. Let's just say that.
Okay.
And Russia invaded.
Hmm.
So what? So what?
They have, wait, you just said it yourself, like they have self-determination in their own country, right? Don't they?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's. I think
Well
the.
then wait, then by your
I want,
logic,
I want
they
to
should
zoom in
have,
on
they
this.
should not
To
be
zoom in on this.
invaded and defend themselves.
Let me explain this. So I know a lot of people in the quote unquote DR, dissident right, two Ukrainians as well, and there is a kind of questionably, but I'll just say it's real, a homegrown Ukrainian nationalism that sees themselves as a distinct ethnicity with sure yada yada sure that's true, but that's a incredibly small amount of very far right wingers who believe that stuff. I don't think that the vast majority of this Ukrainian nationalism is true. I think it's been astroturfed. And say even and who cares? Say it's been astroturfed, whatever. Then still dog eats cat, whatever. I mean, yeah, you say Ukrainian nationalism is completely real and justified, and um, yeah, there will be circumstances when the right to self-determination of one person conflicts with the rights of self-determination of another, and then they have to go to war. I don't see how that kind of conflicts with what I believe in or what I said previously.
Well, then you should be fine with whoever is winning because you clearly don't care about either side. You just care about, yeah, who's gonna win.
No, I don't grant like I personally side with whatever side does good
Wins.
for my
Yes.
own thing, but it's like whichever side wins has the justification to enshrine their own moral frame. But just because like I'm still for my
Yeah,
own
you mean
people,
like
I'm still
Zelensky
for
who
my own
won?
side.
You mean like Russia? You mean like Ukraine who's now going to win? Yeah, so basically you're pro Ukraine. Nice.
No,
Thanks,
let's
thanks.
say
I'm glad we resolved this issue.
okay, let's say Zelensky takes the W and Russia loses in a catastrophic fashion.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to be like a boo-hoo. How unfair is this that the West would do this? But it's like whatever, it
No, no,
happened.
no. Ukraine, not the West.
I think the Ukraine is acting um, on the behalf of America, Israel, and Germany.
Wait, why the fuck would they do that?
Well, let's look who has been in charge of the country for a while now. Western intelligence agencies, after Euromaidan, infiltrated the country and ousted that guy in a coup. So already it's kind of questionable the kind of self-determinacy of the Ukrainian military and intelligence agencies than Zelensky, who is not ethnically Ukrainian, and he identifies more with Israel than he does Ukraine. I mean, he wears Israeli helmets, IDF helmets, while his compadres wear Ukrainian helmets. Goes to show. So I don't think the leadership is really with the Ukrainian people, and it goes to
Hmm, there
show
may be
like
some Jewish elite. Hmm, is that actually what you're going for?
yeah. Let's say there's a country. I mean, South Africa, for example. Do I think a white apartheid ruling class is acting on the behalf of the black Africans? No, they're not. They're acting in their own interests. Whoever rules a country acts in
Yeah,
their own
they're
interests.
co wait, the people who went to Africa were colonizers. Like they actively went there with guns, t took a lot of power there, and that issue hasn't been resolved yet. Like if one
Yeah, and
politician is of Jewish descent in a country that is,
not just one. That's the thing. That's not the thing. It's again. So we could get into a source battle. You could give me an hour, and I can go dig up 100 sources, and we could argue over this. You'll just have to.
no, the claims you're
Um,
making are such preposterous that I don't even need a source for this. Holy
that's
shit.
not, yeah. So again, you'll just have to take what I'm saying at my word, unless you want to have a source battle for an hour. So you'll just have to take my claims at my word. I do think obviously there's a Ukrainian element there. There's a holdover uh, Banderist element that wants to see Ukraine be its own nation, that wants to see the Russians die because they're I don't know Mongolians or whatever their propaganda is. Um, but I think that portion is relatively small, and they're being propped up by larger, more powerful institutions from America, the EU, and Israel. Um, yeah,
Okay, so first of all, if you're going to talk about like a Jewish elite like Israel, Zelensky, Jewish people, etc., Israel won't stick out its neck for Ukraine. It's because of
it
Russia.
won't. It
Like,
won't. Yeah,
yeah. So
but they
why the
will.
fuck?
They
Wait,
will
why the fuck
fund.
would they have a leader who is Jewish, but then not go through with it and like go against Russia?
No,
That's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Israel will never directly do anything because they're not in a position to. But they have sent money to various separatist groups. They have sent arms. They have sent personnel to train people there, and they have institutional backing for Zelensky and several people in his cabinet. So they obviously are putting in a strong effort to help Ukraine against Russia. Um, I mean, just read any Israeli state-affiliated newspaper, and they're all quite anti-Russian. So it's very obvious which side Israel is in the situation, and which side they're willing to put money and arms towards.
Yeah, it's almost as if Russia is like basically Nazi. Uh,
Okay, if you say so. It's
Come
funny.
on,
It's funny.
man. They're very
Well, no.
authoritarian. They have only one leader in charge. They are
Okay.
against free speech. They hold traditionalist values. They constantly have a fear of like the West being too big and trying to invade. Well, that's not even a chance of happening.
Okay, well, it's funny because both sides in this conflict are justifying their moral crusade on anti-Nazism, and both accuse each other of being the real Nazis when really neither side are anything like the Nazis at all. It's just a silly thing to say.
Well, I strongly disagree.
Okay,
They
sure.
do, they barely have like the Jewish question, but that's it.
Russia? Well, they did at some point, but they're losing a lot of money, the Jewish billionaires there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if Putin is actively like doing the Jewish conspiracy theories, but they do like,
Who knows what Putin's doing, honestly? Nobody can tell.
yeah, it's almost as if he killed journalists. Um,
Like the West doesn't do that.
no, maybe one a year at best.
Maybe a few hundred a year. People that disagree with them. I mean,
Which
I thought
countries?
that
Wait, which Western countries kills journalists more than Russia?
I thought that the meme about the Clinton hit list. I thought that was a joke, but then I went and like looked into all the names. It took like half a day. It took forever, but I went and looked into all the names that were on that list. And
I want to see a source of that.
well, I mean, I can email. I mean, I can send you the list of people, and then you can go look into it yourself.
Yeah, I want a source of that as well.
What do you mean
Like, do you
source?
have like
Like
a list or like where'd you get this information from? Like it's some
Uh,
of the images or
I
like
mean the Clinton hit list or like the
yeah,
sources for each individual person in the Clinton hit
the
list?
Clinton hit list.
That's just a list that's been passed around that by anons, very trustworthy anons. Clinton hit list. Let's see. Oh yeah, Clinton body count. That's the thing. Oh no, it's shadow banned. I'll use Yandex or something. C-Rex maybe. Yandex. Clinton hit list. Or I think it's called body count. Full. Um,
You think this is a bad thing that they're killing off journalists? If I grant you that?
I don't care, honestly. Like that's their prerogative. The rich people and powerful people always have different reasons for killing people. So it's like I'm not. As I was saying, it's a horrible thing that they killed all these people. They have their reasons. But I'm not against them because they killed the people. I'm against them because they have aims that will threaten um, kind of my own either
Yeah, it's almost as if
spiritual
people
or
are against ethno-nationalists. How crazy.
uh, rich and powerful people aren't against them for moral reasons. They're against them for different reasons, or at least your moral reasons. All right. A lot of these sites are kind of questionable. They're like blogs, but um, there's like a list of 300. All these have like I'll just put them in the chat, but I can't find the list of like all of it. Only like 50 at a time.
Over how many years is this?
uh, I'm guessing that it started with that kind of the Arkansas thing that Bill Clinton did, where the CIA was caught running drugs in through the Colombians,
Okay, so
and
1990s, around the 1990s then.
about yeah
A little bit
maybe
later.
early 90s. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
think early 90s or so, or even earlier maybe. Yeah, I mean, just Google the names of these people and like spend like 20 minutes on each, and then make your own belief about it.
Alright.
And I'm not like one of those people who's like, oh, it's the Clinton, it's the Democrats. I don't really care. I'm just saying people in power have reasons to kill people. That's all.
Alright, I'll take a look at this.
All right.
So, yeah, I still don't get like the ethno-nationalism though. I don't know if there's any other things like you have against Ukraine. Like I still know why you're like against their self-determination. No, seems pretty obvious to me, but that's just me.
Well, I think the Moscow Tehran and Moscow Delhi axis needs to be secure so that multipolarity can properly exist in the future. And I think if Russia lost, I mean, if Ukraine came under NATO and EU control, I think it'd pretty much be over
Wait,
for
wait, wait, wait. No, no, no. It's not EU control. You can join NATO just by choice. You
no
don't.
no
You
no
can
no.
sign out as well. It's not forced
Yeah,
at
yeah.
all.
But I think once they're in, it's going to be very difficult for them to leave. Plus, NATO, EU, IMF, all these organizations follow each other. Um,
Yeah,
once you have
it's almost as if aligned countries like want to work together with each other.
or aligned institutions and elites want to work together with each other.
Like,
But
yeah,
you know,
these countries are aligned and therefore they have aligned institutions.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Like that, it's what the U.S. does. It's what Russia does as well with its Eastern trade bloc.
yeah. I'm not saying it's anything like implicitly bad that countries work together or that global networks exist. I think it's just like the EU is against my own interests because they're always causing trouble for my stuff. So that's why I'm against them.
What do you mean causing trouble?
Well, I think exportation of subversive ideologies, you know, liberalism around the world, homosexuality, free market capitalism, um, fractional banking, these types of concepts are being pushed worldwide, and that's a problem.
Which one are you against? Are you against the free markets or like are you
All of them,
against?
all the stuff I just listed, I'm against that stuff.
Okay, what would you suggest instead of like free markets?
Again, I'm not going to put a policy for the whole world because different different economically developed people have different ways of increasing their economic capacity. But at least for my own people, it'd have to be kind of what following the model that Japan had after World War II, where they used their agrarian base to develop an industrial manufacturing base, or what America did. So I
But
think
that's wait, but
focusing on
isn't that still like a free market system? Like how is this
no.
different?
So it would be very similar to how China practices
Ah,
its
okay,
trade.
authoritarian. Okay, yeah. So state
Sure.
capitalism.
State capitalism, state corporatism.
Yeah, state capitalism. So you still have, okay, so you basically, the people who are in charge get to decide what everybody gets. Okay.
I'd say it should be probably run by a military or spiritual elite.
A what? A military or a?
A military or a spiritual elite, whatever works.
So what, are you also in favor of theocracy?
Um, it depends on the situation again. Like it really depends on what the circumstances are, what the structural advantages for different things. Like a theocracy won't work in all situations. A democracy, by democracy I mean actual rule by the demos, won't work in all situations. It really depends on what the situation is.
Alright, you know it has failed like every time state capitalism has been tried, right? Like currently China is doing decently, but I mean the outcomes for the people in their country are pretty shit, you know.
No, that's not true. China lifted like 800 people, 800 million people out of poverty from the 80s to the present day. Like that was a massive success for
Yeah,
Deng
because
Xiaoping
wait,
and his
wait, because they were a
government.
developing country. Now they
Yeah,
still have
and
like a lot of people who are in poverty because they only have like farmers land.
those people are slowly reaching the level of the other citizens. It just takes time. And also, is America not a state capitalist country? Like America has more government workers per person than China does.
Wait, wait,
America,
wait, wait. Government person doesn't mean state controlled
I know
state capitalism.
I'm using generalized terms for things, but it's like
Yeah, well,
America's
no, you should be
agrarian base is
specific if you're talking
subsidized.
about these
Okay,
systems.
fine.
Like you
Okay,
can't
fine.
just say there are a lot of people, therefore it's state capitalism. It's
Okay,
entirely
okay.
different. Come on.
No, I do think there's a correlation between prevalency for state capitalism and how many, what's the share of your economy that's like the um, public sector employed. But America's agrarian base is just completely subsidized. America's military complex. It's not like America is just completely free trade. I think they're free trade only in places that it helps them. But they don't export like for the example of India, it took the Russians receiving technology from the Israelis, um, and then giving it to Indians for them to receive a lot of stuff that was commonplace in the West. America would not have those technology transfers. They would not do them. So I think while America promotes free trade tactically, I think ultimately they're state capitalists for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, they have certain industries, of course, that they are tied to. That doesn't mean they're like state capitalist on the whole, though. Like there's a very big difference between the two, in which where China basically controls every industry and has like a big hand in. I think
Yeah, through the
Huawei was
party.
the
Yeah,
company.
it's yeah. Huawei's
That's a
effectively
very
controlled by
big
the military.
difference.
Yeah, it is it's a difference, but I would say if you have like the ideal of state corporatism versus the ideal of a free market capitalist society, I think America, while China is almost dead on state corporatism or capitalism, America is in the middle, but it's a little more to the corporatist side than it is to the free market capitalist side. At least domestically. Internationally, yeah, it's definitely free market capitalist, but domestically, it's not.
All right, I could be. I don't know a lot about the U.S. Economy. Still, though, like the system in China is still worse.
It's worse because they have way more people and they have less technology. It's not worse because the system is structurally worse.
No, like the social credit system they have in China, in which the government can basically spy on you and do whatever. Come on, that's absolutely worse than what's in the U.S. right now.
It's funny people talk a lot about the social credit system, but like where do they get their information about this? Because this is anecdotal, so you could be free to dismiss it as just a one-off opinion. But I have a friend in China, living in Wuhan, actually, funnily enough, and he at least how he described it to me is first of all, it's not really implemented in an authoritarian way. It's implemented quite poorly, actually, because China is a poor country. And most crimes are stuff that most people, even in the well, even in the West, they would say is like public spitting, jaywalking, fraud, cheating on your taxes, um, general criminal activity, adultery, these types of things are bad for society. So it makes sense that we should try to penalize them
Hmm.
or incentivize people who perform well on these metrics. Let's say if you are an upstanding citizen that picks up trash, I think you should be rewarded. You should have a tax break or something, or you should have better loans or better lower interest rates or what are these types of things. I think it's a totally fine idea to um, incentivize good behavior and de-incentivize bad behavior. And I
Okay,
would
but
say
the
that even
extent, wait, but the extent in which you would have to control for that is very like 1984. That's very
I don't think it
authoritarian.
is.
That's very
I
controlling. Like how would you
I've
do
yet
it?
to see evidence that it's being implemented in a quote unquote 1984
Like how else
fashion.
would you do it then? Like how would you know if someone else, if somebody picked up trash, for example? Or like how would you know that someone like did a good thing? You wouldn't,
Oh yeah,
unless you have con yeah, unless
if
you're
there's
constantly
cameras on the
spying on
street,
people.
spying is subjective. Like for example, in the West, like is the West not incredibly authoritarian about social issues? Like you could be fired from your job. You cannot work in a corporate if you have anything writer of Republicans. You'll just be fired from your job. You'll lose your
That's
job.
not true at all.
It is
No,
true.
no, you're unable to get fired because of your political opinions in the US.
That is not true. That's just not the ground.
Yeah, no, mostly trans teachers are getting fired at this point.
Maybe in like rural Texas or something, but
Yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah, that's still bad. Like, no, people don't get fired because they have conservative opinions.
Yeah, they kind of do. James Damore, that whole debacle. It's funny because he was actually progressive.
Wait, you mean like the Google guy?
It's funny because the Google guy was actually arguing about how you could do diversity better. He was like, the way that you're doing
Wait,
diversity
wait, who's
sucks.
James Damore?
The Google guy, yeah, the guy that got
Oh, the
fired. He's
Google
like,
guy.
here's how you do diversity better. Here's how you incentivize it in a better way. And he got fired for stating like obvious like hormonal and psychological differences between men and women. So I mean, are those are kind of conservative stances on kind of the realities of men and women. But again, you could disagree. I live in the United States. I've always have, and these can't like. How are you gonna statistically
Wait, you live in the
analyze that?
US?
I do live in the U.S. I have an American accent.
But you're like, didn't you say you were like at your ethnicity was like what do you call it? Not Pakistani, I think.
No, I don't want to give any identifying
Yeah,
information,
of course.
but
But wait, you're an ethno-stater of your own ethnicity, but you live at the same time in like in a
mhm.
country that's promoting diversity.
Well, again, it's not my choice. My parents moved here. I'll probably move back later in life. But even so, it's like,
Do you speak the
as if
language of your
I
home
can
country?
speak the language, yes.
Just curious.
Um, but for example, like let's say Aristotle going to Macedon. You don't, and I have my own like praxis. I have my own real political and social um, plans that I want to instantiate upon the world. I can't go into them for obvious reasons, but you don't instantiate them from like a rural farm or something. Like Aristotle didn't stay in Greece and mull about in a collapsing society. He went to Macedon where the stuff was happening, and then he taught there. Like if let's just say one of my goals is dun 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 the collapse of the American state. Like I'm not going to achieve that in somewhere else. I'm going to achieve that by being in America. So fifth column.
So the country that basically has led to your well-being, your welfare, you want to take it down. And you think it's gonna be better in your home country?
Well, I think again, it's if you did in terms of material comforts, yeah, America is way better. No, nobody disagrees with that. But in terms of spiritual, moral, political, and ethnic things, it's far worse. It's far
But
worse, and I value those way more than material
you
comforts.
know your home country will eventually lead to those same ideas, right? Because they're the right ideas.
If you say so. I don't believe in that like linear Whig history or whatever.
Well, no, it's not really linear, but I get what you mean. There is like there is like a certain trend, of course. Okay, so how would you deal then with people, for example, who disagree with your opinions, but they're from
Um,
your same country? Like,
within
like would
like
you
within
evict them?
my ethnic,
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess copy what the West does to indoctrinate their own people, like enforce schooling, state religion, stuff like that. You know, it depends on the situation too.
Yeah, I'm
Sometimes
against state
you can be more,
religion as well, by the way, so.
yeah. Well, you can sometimes be more soft-handed. Sometimes you have to use more hard-handed tactics. But
Okay,
whatever
what
gets
if
the
they still don't comply?
um. But what does their non-compliance consist of? Like
You would
posting
just
online,
like
or
you would just kill them then, or like in
well, what
Roblox,
does
or
their
like
non-compliance consist of? If they're like, I don't know, throwing bricks through windows or they're attacking civil authorities, then some sort of more punitive measure. But if
what if they're
they're just like
journalists? How would you deal with
journalists,
journalists? Yeah.
um, probably take away their internet connection, delist their credit card, basically stifle their ability to propagate their message, and take away their source of financing, make them reliant on the state.
So you're basically advocating for echo chambers.
Yeah, echo chambers is how you kill movements.
Yeah, that's what you're arguing for because you want one ideology, homogeneous society, which apparently,
Oh, I wouldn't
well,
say that's an echo
eventually it would
chamber.
not have like any introversion, introspection, right? Because
No,
if everybody agrees with each other, then
I'm not a hardcore like biological determinist or anything. I'm some level of um, and mixing from other people groups is fine. It's just maintaining that cohesive collective, and
well,
say
no, wait,
even
that wouldn't be fine because then your race would not be your race anymore, your ethnicity would not be your ethnicity anymore. Eventually,
well,
people then will mix and you won't have your population. So either
well,
you
it
have to
depends
go
on
full or
who
you
you're
have to
mixing.
go. There is no middle in this.
It depends who you're mixing. For example, Russians. If they mix with a Tatar, which is quote unquote race mixing, it wouldn't really have an effect on their. Or they mix with a Pole, or they mix with a Slovenian, or a German. That wouldn't have. I mean, that's still racial diversity. But it wouldn't have really a
No, it would.
really
It
good
would lead
effect.
to the downfall of your ethnicity. Like you don't see the long-term game plan here, but basically you have to advocate for all or nothing, or you're Your
Well,
ethnicity is gonna be wiped out.
No ethnicity is like one monolithic, like, completely, other than like maybe like some Welsh person or
Why
something,
not
or
go
like some
further? I don't
contact
get
you
it.
could
Like
have.
your position is basically what I just laid for, okay? It's either one or the other. Like if you're going to
No, I
do
can.
half it, then
It's
you won't have
nuance.
anything left eventually.
There's nuance here. It depends on who you're mixing with, because say like a Native American living in North America versus a Native American living in South America. There's genetic diversity there, but they're like a cousin people. They descend from the same Siberian stock, so them mixing wouldn't really make much difference. You could assimilate. Same with like say I don't know, a Frenchman going to Ireland and living with the Irish. But a Russian going to Ireland would not be the most cohesive mix. Or a Turk going to a Turk mixing with a Greek. That would, well, that's complicated politically, but racially the people are very similar. So that wouldn't really
Eventually,
be.
no, yeah, you're wrong. Eventually, they will identify as one or the other.
Yeah, they will. They will. But I
Yeah,
don't think
so
I'm not
then
a
you will
hardcore biological
lose.
determinist. Yeah, they will. But it's like, okay,
No,
let's say
you will
let's say
lose because no, again, because you will lose. You can't mix them with other people because eventually those people, the children of those mixed couples, will go either one way or the other.
okay,
Like
let's say
Obama is black. He's not called half white,
yeah,
half black. And you will have the
yeah.
same in your
Well, you know,
country.
it's not half and half. White and black are very different races, whereas Russians and Irish are. I mean, French and Irish are quite similar. Let's say I'm not a
Well,
Pashtun,
if eventually all those
but
racial lines are gone, you won't
they
see the
won't be
difference.
gone.
You will
They
see the
won't be
difference.
gone.
You'll eventually have a system that will make a distinction between those two groups, just as uh, um fuck, what do you call it? Just as arbitrary as the different races between black and white are.
I
That's
don't
what you
think
will
that.
end up with.
I don't think there would be like obviously there's some autists out there who are like, oh, the haplogroup has to be completely identical to the
Yeah, and
subclade.
that
Like,
will happen.
I don't believe that stuff. I don't believe that.
Yeah, but that will
I'm not.
happen eventually. Like eventually you won't have
I
any
don't think
races
so.
to discern yourself from and get to that point.
I don't think that would happen. But if, let's say I want to give an example. Let's say I'm a Pashtun. I'm not a Pashtun, but let's say I'm a Pashtun, and I mix with a Nuristani, or I mix with a Persian, or say I'm a Georgian and I mix with an Ossetian, or I mix with a Turk.
You really
Um,
know a lot of different ethnicities, but yeah, go on.
those people, those examples that I gave, they're not all too indistinct people. And I think they'd be able to adopt, say, Nuristani is a very small ethnic group in kind of Central Asia, and mixing with Pashtuns, which they usually do, they identify as Pashtun. Or um, Ossetians are a small ethnic group, and they mix with Georgians quite a bit, so they identify as Georgian. I don't think there will be like a kind of like hyper autistic, like, oh, you're not my specific. If you're brother groups, if you're cousin groups, I don't think that's a big problem. I think
Yeah, yeah, no, no, yeah, there will
no,
be a divide. Eventually, people will be so nationalistic. Instead of dividing by countries, they'll go by province. Instead of by province, they'll go by city. You can narrow it down as much as you want. This will
I'm not
eventually happen.
narrowing it down though. I'm not narrowing it down though.
No, but they will. Like
So says
if
who?
you are
So how
advocating
will that
for
happen? Why would
solidarity
that happen?
between like let's say you're Russian. Okay, I don't know. Let's say you're Russian. Okay, eventually you have the Asian Russians and the Western Russians, and then eventually there'll be a divide. So Western Russians split up, and they see,
But there is
oh,
no divide.
you're from the eastern border, and then
There
they'll
is no
split
divide.
up, and they'll split up. That's how it will
Russian
happen.
Russians are quite nice to their Asian compadres. I mean, the birth rate of Asians is skyrocketing while Russians is declining, and they have no problem with that.
Yeah, I
Let's
was
go to
just
another.
being an example. Eventually, they will divide each other up as
I
well.
don't think no Russians and like Siberians have. There has never been a civil conflict between those two groups ever.
Yeah,
The
now there
Siberian
isn't, and there hasn't been yet.
and there
But
hasn't been for like
in the
two
system you
thousand years.
advocate for, there will be.
Okay, okay. I don't think it's an automatic like that. I just disagree.
No, it will be the logical consequence of what you're advocating for. Like if you're going to divide for, okay, so everybody in
No, I
Western Europe is basically white as fuck, okay? If you divide them by country, by the arbitrary countries, you will see nationalism grow. You will see more racial essentialism going on. And the further you divide those places, the easier it will go. Okay, I live in the Netherlands. Okay, we have neighbors in the south in Belgium. You know, we make a very clear distinction between Belgian people and Dutch people, even though they're like maybe 2 kilometers apart. And then eventually, like you'll have cities like Rotterdam versus Amsterdam. They'll divide. That's how it will go. And if you enforce this further nationalistic idea, it will only be narrower and narrower. It will not
Well,
go,
that's
it will
the thing.
not be like,
I
hey,
never
we
said I was
now have,
national.
it will not,
I actually, I distinctly said I was against nationalism. I'm not for kind of the Westphalian nation state
yeah, okay,
idea.
I'm conflating nationalism and ethnicity here, but I hope you get
Yeah,
the point.
I don't think that's a poor conflation though. I already said third position is a bad idea, and it's an idea that won't persist in the future successfully. It's bad practice. So yeah, I don't believe in a nation state. I don't believe in ethno nationalism or whatever. That's a bad idea. It's a
Okay, let's say, let's say you have one ethnic community and you have another ethnic community.
mm,
Okay, and they keep separate for years. Okay, they're different from each other. They live maybe a few kilometers away from each other. Okay,
okay.
now they start to grow, etc., etc. Okay, eventually they'll have to reach a point wherein both societies will say, okay, we have successfully accomplished our goals. We have successfully been like a pure homogeneous society. Now then there is divide. Okay, that divide breaks down. One will conquer the other. Okay, one will be the homogeneous society. Well, if they have eventually spread across the country, then there will be again in groups. For example, north and south. Um, then the northern tribe will grow homogeneous, okay? And they will grow as well. They will expand as well. And then you have in the northern side the northeast and northwest side. And eventually, as you make those distinctions, you will never be able to reach a homogeneous society. Like people can uh, uh, appeal to this idea all they want. It will never happen because people will make those arbitrary distinctions no matter what.
Well, again, I should clarify what I mean by homogeneous society. It's homogeneity of a society or racial distinctions are not an end in themselves. They're a tool for more higher important things, like statecraft or spirituality.
But that's not
And we should.
necessary.
Wait, that's okay. You just have to you just have to grant me that that's necessary for my own ethic, my own belief system. But we should never talk about these things abstractly. We should always look at real historical examples because it's more empirical. Say I don't know, Elam, Sumer, Babylon, Assyria, and the Hittites. Let's just say that group in the world. They're all generally very racially close to each other. They're all from the same people, and they live very very close. And yes, they did engage in all sorts of wars and conflicts with each other. But did the Sumerians when they had their or Elamites is a better example because they were more dispersed and diffused across the mountain range. Did they say that like, oh, we're the Elamite state, but really we need to identify what's more homogenous about us, and they split off into separate kingdoms and I don't know province. They didn't. They saw themselves as unified Elamite people. And when Hittites came and invaded, um, the Babylonians and Elamites unified against the Hittites because they saw themselves they had their past conflicts, but they saw this outside enemy as an even greater threat. Or when everybody ganged up in the region on Assyria and blew them out because the Assyrians were from a northern or northeastern kind of steppe tribe, some of this later Neo Assyria. So they saw them as foreign and all ganged up and destroyed Assyria. So I think yes, there will be times when a too decentralized could call it federalist maybe that's the United States example, but that kind of federalist model will cause problems. Yeah, that will happen. There will be times where that happens.
Yeah, so
But
like
I
what
think
you just said,
generally
I mean,
for the purposes of our own present time modern age, I think it's better that there's a decoupling, not a decoupling back to like the family and like the hearth tribe or something where like you have a longhouse and your 20 relatives. No, but I think a decoupling from this like transnational globalist system where we all like shake hands and hug each other, and we're all like one human race, man. Like that needs to be
Yeah,
gotten
that's
rid of.
true though, because you just said you're going at arbitrarily by ethnicity, but in the example you mentioned, they also
I'm
went
not talking an
arbitrarily by
arbitrary example.
ethnicity.
We can measure genetic groups by lineage. We can classify different ethnic groups by their allele
Yeah, of
distributions,
course, but
FTP
but those
distributions.
are still arbitrary. Like what you call one, uh, um, what you call one ethnicity
No,
or another
no.
ethnicity
Do
can be
you
very
think all
arbitrary.
races have the same predisposition for muscle growth? Do you think that
All ethnicities.
all ethnicities, all people on Earth have the same disposition for muscle growth? All, if you say, if you say
If
like,
you remove socioeconomic
yeah,
situations, like purely genetic, um,
yeah.
yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
It's- so you're telling me that if we removed all socioeconomic factors, a let's say a Thai person, um, Thais are very good at like light combat sports. They completely dominate the like lower weight divisions. Very good at like the 100
Yes,
to 120.
socioeconomic circumstances. Yes.
Yes, wait. So they dominate in that. Nobody can even touch them. While the socioeconomically and Thais are very poor, but the socioeconomically incredibly much more successful Western nations cannot even touch them in this weight class. Whereas, and you're telling me that somehow, for big strong men, like proper strong men, um, like the what's his face, Bjork half Thorn, some silly Nordic name. Um, do you think that if Thai people were given the same, I guess, food and lifestyle as uh, as a Western nation, they would grow to be as tall as the Nords, for example?
If they have the same, uh, uh, yeah, actually, yes. Yeah, I would say this. Yeah,
Okay.
you can laugh at like this idea of not believing in racial essentialism, but this is true. There is a, for example, great example of this is the divide between North and South Korea. Okay, the people in South Korea are taller than the people in North Korea. Why?
And the
Because in
people of
South
South
Korea,
Korea are okay. South Koreans are have a great lifestyle. They're
yeah,
effectively better than
exactly.
a
So
Western
it's
nation, but
socioeconomic
they're
circumstances.
still weaker and less tall than Nords. What's up with that? Should they become more
Yeah,
economically
no,
successful?
yeah, again, socioeconomic circumstances.
Ah,
If you would
see.
even, wait, if you even grant that, yeah, North Koreans can become taller and more, uh, uh, and maybe more built physique, um,
That's
because
not
of
what we're talking about. We're
socioeconomic
talking about South
circumstance,
Koreans versus
then you must
Nords.
also
We're talking about South
say
Koreans
that,
versus
yeah,
Nords.
they may have worse conditions than the socioeconomic circumstance in Nordic countries. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, use a better example. Let's compare South Korea with one of those kind of poor Balkan nations like Croatia or Serbia.
Hmm.
Croatia and Serbia are like shitholes basically, but they produce lots of boxers, strongmen, all this stuff. South Korea cannot even come anywhere close to. And I'm not bashing the South Koreans. They have an interesting culture and all that. They're incredibly good at maximizing this, but they have their own strengths. But they cannot compare at all to Balkan strongmen, even though Balkans are incredibly poor socioeconomically. There's a disaster going on there, but South Koreans are very well off. So is what's happening here? What's the deal?
I don't know specifically this example, but I can say that hey, maybe they have a culture of like weightlifting every year, or like weightlifting is very important to them. Like if you would go to black people in the US, they have the same or almost the same socioeconomic circumstances as, for example, poor white people. But poor black people, they for they are like having to train basketball. They play basketball a lot, you know. Eventually, they'll get in. You can have it so that basketball will become an essential part of the black culture, and that could lead them to playing in the NBA. You'll have more black people playing basketball, therefore you'll have more people in the NBA, even though they live in the same country. Yeah, that's a reason why
There are
culture is so important.
bone density, marrow density, like white muscles versus red muscles. There's a lot of factors why I don't know, blacks are good at basketball or whites are good at tennis or um,
Socio-economic circumstances.
it's
Wait,
okay.
have you seen people
Agree to
play
disagree.
tennis? They're like rich, they're like rich boys, okay? They're not like from poor communities because you need the largest tennis field to play.
Tennis. is for rich people because historically it's been that way, but there's nothing to do with like economic socioeconomic factors are pretty much
No,
null
yeah,
in
no,
what
wait. Basketball needs like what, 6 versus 6 people, a field and 2 hoops. Okay? For
so
tennis,
it's
it's 2v2. You need a good head, you need a good
1v1
net that
usually.
needs to be sustained. Okay? You need a lot of things that maybe there isn't enough money for, or maybe it isn't as
Okay.
relevant in these
Okay, this
communities.
is I just
Socioeconomic circumstances.
I would rather have a statistics or genetics argument over this. So I think agree to disagree unless you want to start posting uh,
Yeah, no, I
uh
mean, I just want to say like
genetic
the
studies.
notion that there is a racial difference between people that will lead to these outcomes is just ridiculous. Okay, no biologist would agree to this.
Okay, agree to disagree. I think biologists would
Yeah,
agree
let,
to it.
let's let's
We'll
let's
agree to disagree. Yeah,
the
move
scientists say that I'm right. That's how I'm gonna go about this.
on. Okay, if you say so. Yeah, if you say so. Well, we can move on to something else.
No, if the biologists say so.
Okay, if the biologists say so.
Yeah, so I don't know. Do you have any other topics? I think we covered most of your ethno-nationalism.
Mm-hmm. Up to you, man. Whatever you want to tackle next, or if you're done, then I'm done.
Um, I know I don't. I'm currently streaming, but I don't see like a lot of comments in chat. So I know maybe chat can bring up a topic they'd like to see debate. I probably have nobody watching. Yeah. Um, no, I think I'm all out. Uh,
All right, it's been swell.
yeah, I want to
If
thank you
you
for
have,
coming on.
yeah, if you have any other topics that you'd like to hear the evil, racist right-wing perspective on, then you know where to find me. But
Yeah, hey,
other
if I
than
can I message you if I have another debate topic or something?
yep, sure.
Like I
By
strongly
the way, where
disagree,
are
but
you?
I still enjoy it though.
Yeah, where do you stream this, by the way? You
Twitch.
should link your YouTube and your Twitch in like as a Discord connection. It helps people find it better.
I'm sorry.
You should link your
Oh,
Twitch and your YouTube as a Discord connection. You could display them under your profile and
oh
people can
shit,
find
that's
it that
actually
way.
pretty smart. Like, like that's a good idea. Um, uh, let's see. No, I'll figure it out later. Uh,
It's super easy. Just click on the settings icon, then scroll down to um, user settings. It's the fifth one down, connections, and then just click on the thing and it'll automatically do it.
um, user
Yeah.
settings.
Fifth from the top, if you just click on the setting icon, it says connections.
Oh wait, never mind. I see what I can join. It's because I'm streaming, so it has a streamer modus. I'll figure it out.
All right.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man, for coming
Well.
on.
Yeah. I'll talk to you later, man. See ya.
Yeah, see ya. Holy shit. That went way differently than I thought. In a good way, though.